This week on Cycle World, the 1,700-mile, 6-day desert odyssey known as the Nevada Rally. Riders from 15 different countries will do battle on some of the most challenging terrain in the Southwest. It's become the most prestigious off-road event in North America. It's the second annual Nevada Rally, and it's next on Cycle World. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cycle World here on Prime. Today we take a one-week hiatus from the world of road racing to bring you exclusive coverage of one of the most important events on the international off-road racing calendar. It's the second annual Nevada Rally. Now, before we head to the wide-open expanses of Nevada, let's catch up on the latest racing news. Okay, now let's get down to the business at hand. International off-road competition. For those of you who are unfamiliar with what are termed international raid marathon rallies, here's a brief overview. First, you assemble 100 or so world-class riders from at least 15 different countries. Put them on state-of-the-art off-road motorcycles for a week's worth of bone-jarring racing. Unleash them on some of the fastest, trickiest, challenging, and nastiest terrain imaginable and see who comes out on top. It's sort of a Tour de France, but instead of bicycles, Nevada Rally competitors are on motorcycles. Now, that's an oversimplification for sure, but I think you get an idea of what we're talking about. Now, keeping track of the 100 or so riders for the duration of the rally is a monumental task, but an essential one if credibility and worldwide recognition is your goal. Franco Acerbi's, Italy's Donald Trump of the motorcycle industry, is the master of rally promotion and organization, and it is through his American-based Acerbi's USA that the rally is organized, marketed, and ultimately run. Now, as far as the actual competition goes, rally competitors will compete in daily timed routes over special tests as well as transfer segments. A comprehensive scoring system provides results from each section each day and allows competitors and media to keep track of the overall standings. Now, more on the rules of the rally a little later in the show, but before we go any further, let's head to the city that never sleeps, Las Vegas. We'll check in with one of our two field reporters, Dennis Torres.
Welcome to Las Vegas. In a word, it's hot. Maybe two words, very hot, well over 100 degrees. Now, Larry has given you an overview of the rally, and he's also mentioned that there are world-class riders here competing at the Nevada Rally. Now, legitimately, there are 10 to 15 riders that can win the overall. But I'd like to take this opportunity now to point out a handful of riders which I think will play significant roles in this year's event. Leading the way, the living legend, Frenchman Stéphane Peter Hansel. He's the Kenny Roberts, or Roger DeCoster of international off-road racing. His resume is as impressive as his reputation. Three-time winner of the Paris-Dakar, winner of Paris to Peking, two-time international 6 days enduro overall champion. Those are a few of his major accomplishments. This will be the first time that the Yamaha factory rider will be competing in the Nevada Rally. Also from France, Alain Olivier, the Nevada Rally reigning champion. Kawasaki mounted, Olivier will definitely be in the hunt. Motocross fans will recognize Austrian Heinz Kinnegadner, two-time world motocross champion. Now living in Spain, the 34-year-old baker and cake maker can still hold the throttle wide open and has garnered several European enduro titles. Where are the Americans, you ask? Well, let's head over to American Honda's pit, where a pair of U.S. riders will be challenging the world's best. First, Charles Halcomb, last year's runner-up in the inaugural Nevada Rally. Last year, he rode with KTM. This year, he joins the Red Riders. Smart, cool, always rides within his capabilities, and rarely makes a navigational mistake. A perfect complement to Halcomb is fellow Californian Chuck Miller. At 35 years young, Miller has been a dominant force in American desert racing for 2 decades. Very few riders can match the pace of this desert specialist. Both Miller and Halcomb will be on factory-built Honda XR600s. A very impressive list of riders, to be sure. Now joining me is the third member of our broadcast team. We're very proud to have veteran off-road champion Scott Harden joining us for expert commentary. And Scott, I'm going to put you on the spot immediately. You heard my list of favorites. Who's going to win the 1994 Nevada Rally?
Well, Dennis, as a native Las Vegan and a gambling man somewhat myself, I'd have to put all my money on Stéphane Peter Hansel. The man is extremely tough. He's proven himself over the last 5 years to be the best all-around off-road rider in the world. I don't see him letting up at this event. Right behind Stefan, I'd have to go with Alain Olivier from France, the defending champion. And then if I had to pick a dark horse American to pull off the win, I'd have to go with Chuck Miller. He's a veteran. He's very determined, and he's very hard-driven for this race. I think he's going to be right in there at the end.
We have tremendous heat, dust, mechanical failures, injuries. You rode this race last year. How does a rider compete with all those adversities?
Well, that's a pretty long list of adversities to deal with, and that's one reason why I'm not riding this year. But I can tell you, this event really does push the human rider to his limits. It's just impossible to describe the amount of intense pain, physical stress that they have to go through for the next 6 days. I think when this thing's all over, whoever comes out on top certainly can claim title to the world's fastest all-around off-road rider.
That's for sure. We're looking forward to your expert commentary and observations during the rally. Now, let's send it back to Larry Myers, and he'll describe the 1994 Nevada Rally course.
1,700 miles of rocks, dust, cactus, and the unexpected will greet this year's participants. The rally leaves Las Vegas and heads to Tonopah on day one. Fallon is next as the rally heads clockwise around the state. Elko, the self-proclaimed best little town in America, will be the northernmost part of the course. Ely is next, where riders and rally personnel will have a day off. 2 special tests are scheduled for the Mesquite leg on day 6. Then it all comes to an end back in Las Vegas, and that's where we'll start our coverage when we return. Welcome back to the Nevada Rally. Now, that was KTM rider Austrian Heinz Kinnegadner, who just blasted off the line as he begins the prologue. This timed event through a makeshift course on the Showboat Hotel property will set the starting order for the first day's special test. Due to the navigational aspect of the rally and the dust encountered on the course, most riders will try hard to secure an early starting position. Most feel the prologue sets the tone for the rally. Others feel it's insignificant. The racing will start in the desert. Bad Betty Squadron Clothing brings you the results of the prologue. American Jeff Thayer took top honors with his Honda teammate, Cycle World magazine editor Jim Lewis second. Chuck Miller makes it a sweep of the top 3 places for American Honda. Kawasaki privateer and Nevada native Scott Morris finished 11th. Last year's rally runner-up Charles Halcomb was next. Heinz Kinnegadner was 14th. Defending rally champ Alain Olivier was 18th, and superstar Stefan Peter Hansel a disappointing 23rd. Prior to departing the Showboat Hotel Casino, Motofair provided riders, media, and support personnel a chance to view and purchase every conceivable motorcycle accessory. From state-of-the-art off-road bikes to the latest in off-road attire, the Motofair was a great place to check out motorcycle merchandise catering to the enthusiast. With one snip of the scissors, the ceremonial ribbon cutting is done, and Franco Acherbis and company have officially christened the 1994 rally. In the early morning sunshine, the rally participants will pull out of the Showboat parking lot and ride 160 miles in a transfer section to the start of day 1 special test. Close to 100 of the world's best off-road racers parade through the streets of Las Vegas, giving locals a sight they will not soon forget. The transfer section of 160 miles plus the special test of 210 miles will comprise the first day's course from Las Vegas to Tonopah. Beatty, Nevada was the site of the rally's first special test. Number 35, Jeff Thayer, was first off as a result of his prologue victory. The roll chart used by riders to find their way through the desert indicates an area of concern soon after the timed departure. The area in concern is a ditch with water at the bottom. Now, number 38, American Jim Lewis, is the first of the big names to hit the area in question. He employs the "he who hesitates is lost" theory, guns the throttle, and powers through. Here's reigning rally champ Alain Olivier to test his throttle control and sense of balance. It doesn't get any better than that. Number 4, Darrell Folks, is the son of rally coordinator Casey Folks. He should have talked to Dad about that ditch. Scott Morris tries to push his Kawasaki up and over. He goes down and under. Andre Pretola gives it a go. Make that a stop. Further up the course, meanwhile, Japanese rider Satoshi Uchimura is using the international form of communication to describe his close encounter of the painful kind. What he is telling us is that at 50 miles an hour, he hit a bump and got airborne. More trouble. Event supervisor Bill Baroff and Massimiliano Valentini demonstrate synchronized powerlifting with about 300 pounds of Kajiba. Could this be an Olympic sport in 1996? Nevada Rally medical response is second to none. I love the smell of hydrogen peroxide in the morning. Smells a lot like get off. You know, while many riders were rudely shocked into reality on day one, the rally favorites soldiered on through the heat and treacherous conditions. Bikes with battle damage were a common sight. Number 89, Brian Foltz, perseveres. He knows only too well a non-finish or minutes lost on day one will be awfully hard to make up as the week wears down. James Lowe learned about perseverance the hard way. It was a long, hard walk back to the pits with an empty gas tank. Honda Riders Club of America brings you the results of day one. Cycle World magazine editor Jimmy Lewis is over 5 minutes ahead of Honda teammate Chuck Miller and 7 minutes ahead of last year's rally champ Alain Olivier. Franco Acherbis does the honors as the traditional gold bib is presented to the day's special test winner, Jimmy Lewis. And we'll be right back. Welcome back to Cycle World on Prime. This is day 2 of the Nevada Rally, Tonopah to Fallon. A short transfer of 12 miles followed by a very long and hard 233-mile special test. Early on day 2, rally competitors encountered navigational problems. Many, including American Charles Halcomb, felt a road book, that's the book that provides the directions to the riders, was the culprit.
For instance, if you look at this one here, this will show just a diagram of like going up through a canyon, and there's no specific roads that they really point to. It's just a canyon. Like I say, the reason I think they've done this is to accommodate the Europeans a little bit more, make them feel at home, and they've done it. So we've got to stay on our toes.
American Jimmy Lewis did not heed Halcomb's advice. Lewis was the first rider out. He took a wrong turn on the course and lost valuable time. Our camera crew came to the aid of defending rally champ Alain Olivier. He got lost after assuming the lead from Lewis. Had our crew not been there, he would have surely lost a minimum of 10 points. Olivier's mishap allowed Austrian Heinz Kinnegatner to close the gap and pass the Frenchman. Former motocross world champ and Olivier left this check together and swapped the lead as they raced toward Fallon. Our camera chopper crew had the best seat in the house as the two international stars matched each other turn after turn, mile after mile. The two riders held a torrid pace, waiting for the other to try a breakaway or make a navigational error. Behind Kinnegatner and Olivier, Honda teammates Johnny Campbell and Jimmy Lewis were pacing themselves in a battle for third place. At this point in the course, riders were crossing dry lake beds where speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour were the norm. Desert racer Paul Krause entered the rally with high hopes. As he disappeared from sight, his factory Kawasaki sputtered to a halt. For Krause, the rally was over. At the end of the day's special test, there was a logjam of riders. All of the front runners got lost at least once. Number 2, Charles Halcomb, arrived second to Jimmy Lewis on the course, but because of his starting time, ended up fastest on the day. For the rest of the field, the story was brutal terrain. It literally ripped tires from their rims. There would be plenty of late-night tire maintenance in Fallon. KKLZ-FM in Las Vegas brings you the results for day 2. Halcomb gives Honda 2 wins in 2 days. Let's go to Scott Harden to wrap up the second day.
One final footnote, Larry, on just how tough it is out there on these machines, especially the wheels and tires. I have an example here. I'm here in the KTM pit with team coordinator Brian Musella, and this is an example of what happened today between Goldfield and the finish. This rider tried to ride it in on a flat, and as you can see, he just didn't make it. Brian has another example here to show us just how tough it is out there on these machines as they pound through the rocks and ledges at high speed. Man, it's really brutal out there.
Not to mention temperatures plus 100 degrees. Now, besides vying for the individual honors, riders are also contesting a team competition. 3 rider teams combine their finishing positions and times in order to determine the winning team. After 2 days of racing, American Honda number 1, with Jimmy Lewis, Charles Halcomb, and Chuck Miller, is leading that competition. Nevada Rally action continues on Prime right after this. Welcome back to Cycle World on Prime and the Nevada Rally, Day 3.